Hi, everyone. Welcome to Stat 418-518, Statistical Computing and Graphics with R. My name is Andrew. I'll be your professor this semester. And even though we won't be meeting together in person or even remotely, since this is an asynchronous course, I'm looking forward to the semester ahead where we'll get to learn a lot together about the programming language R. So to start today in this video, what we're going to talk about is some high-level aspects of the course. We're going to look at the Blackboard site a little bit together. We'll look at some slides where I just introduce myself, talk about some of the things we're going to be learning this semester together. And that's how we'll start things off. So here we'll look at the Blackboard course site together. Okay. All right, so we're in section 3 of Stat 418-518. This is where Blackboard, the course site, is where I'm primarily going to be distributing content to you this semester. This Blackboard course site in tandem with a YouTube channel where videos will be made available. Lecture recordings like this one. Okay. So starting from the top here, there will be announcements periodically. I always try to make those email notified as well so that you are sure to see those announcements. I'll try to do those frequently throughout the semester, especially since this is an asynchronous section of the course. This virtual electronic communication will be key this semester. The syllabus and schedule are also available on Blackboard. I embedded them here in the Blackboard course site, but you can also obtain a Word or Google Doc version of the syllabus by clicking this link as well. Okay. If you see an error or a message that says unauthorized user cannot access, something like that, you need to sign into your Grand Valley Gmail account in order to access this document and many other documents throughout the semester. Okay. So just know you would just need to sign into your Grand Valley Gmail, and then that error should go away if you try to click on that again. And if you ever have any trouble, feel free to email me and I'd be happy to help. So that's where the syllabus is at. The course schedule, a weekly schedule, is posted here as well. The syllabus, I anticipate, or will be static. It won't change throughout the semester, but the weekly schedule here likely will be updated somewhat as we progress through the semester. Sometimes we just don't get to as many topics as we were hoping to. Sometimes we might get to a little bit more. Assigned readings might change slightly. So that's why I also just linked to a Google Doc so you can check it here. And the most up-to-date version will always be reflected here on Blackboard. Okay. I start with the week number, the first day of that week, and then the topic roughly that we're going to be covering that week. And then there's assigned readings, which you should do. There will be quizzes throughout the semester that cover these readings, so they do need to be completed. You'll notice I assign sometimes just individual sections here rather than full chapters. I actually went through and read all of these myself and only assigned what I thought was important for the course. So if there was a section that was maybe nice, but not essential for the course, I tried to exclude it to minimize the amount of reading that you need to do. You're of course welcome to read more of these books as you like, but I put here what is minimum in terms of what needs to be read for this class. And then in this concept section, I list a little bit more specifically the topics or concepts we'll be covering that week. I suppose looking at the reading section here, There's some acronyms which are defined at the bottom of the document here. These are the 3 textbooks, online textbooks we're going to be using this semester. So they're all freely available online. You can order hard copies of these through Amazon or other means, but using them online is what I would recommend. It's easier to copy and paste from them. It's free and it's always available there from any device. So these are the 3 textbooks that cover different aspects related to the course. R for data science will cover the Tidyverse package. We'll learn more about what that is later in the semester. Data manipulation and what we call data wrangling. A little bit of Ggplot and R package for data visualization, but mostly data manipulation type techniques. Hands-on programming with R is a sort of first-time R learners book. So if you're coming to R programming or any programming for the first time and you're trying to learn R, this is a beginner's guide to that. And then this book is Ggplot2 was specifically written for those wishing to use Ggplot2 and R package for data visualization. That's just a very brief introduction there for the course schedule. Under weekly content here in week 1 are these welcome slides. Okay. So this semester in these videos, I'll look at slides together with you. So I'll make these slides available so you can follow along while you watch this video. And I will always make slides available in 2 formats, HTML and a PDF of the slides. Okay. So they contain the same content, but the PDF slides might have slightly less functionality or interactivity than the HTML slides. Okay, so sometimes in this class, we'll look at a little bit of interactive visualizations that we can make, things you can give inputs and receive outputs, things like that. Those function a little bit better with HTML, but the PDF versions of the slides, 99% of the content is exactly the same. Okay. So I just make both available. And again, just like with the Google Docs that I share, the PDFs are shared Google Drive files that you need to be signed into your Grand Valley Gmail account to access. Okay. So if you ever get an error again, know that you just need to sign into your Grand Valley Gmail account to access those documents. So looking at these welcome slides here, welcome again to Stat 418, 518, Stat Computing and Graphics with R. This is, I took like an equivalent course of this sort of topics, range of topics when I was in graduate school at the University of Minnesota. By far my favorite class I've ever taken in college. So I'm excited that I finally, this is my first semester teaching this class ever. I'm excited to cover this all with you this semester. So I am now second year. I'm a second year faculty in the stat department, just coming off my first year. Last summer, I graduated from the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, the Golden Gophers. I earned my PhD in biostatistics last July. You're welcome to call me Andrew or Professor, works great. Professor Delernia, whichever you would prefer. I'm originally from Potterville, Michigan, which is a town just outside of Lansing, kind of closer to Michigan State. But I went to Grand Valley for undergrad. So I'm a fellow Laker as well. And I double majored in math and statistics. Changed my major several times along the way. But statistics is what I loved. what I found I loved. And I added mathematics to help me with going to grad school in statistics. I also ran cross country and track and field when I was at Grand Valley for 3 years and continue to run for fun. Here's Minneapolis, which is where the University of Minnesota is at, where I went to grad school. So it's a really beautiful area. A bit colder in the winter, but this is in the summer. This picture is from the summer. So very beautiful, especially in the spring. This was from this past spring. This is one of the many parks that they have in the city. It's like one of the most, has some of the most parks of any major city in the US. They always are trying to get awards for that, having like so many square feet of parks in the city. And yeah, this one was a very nice one that was close to my apartment when I lived there. So in the background there is actually the Mississippi River. That's what runs through Minneapolis there. It splits the Twin Cities, which are St. Paul and Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I think not too many people know this who are not from Minnesota, and I didn't know before I went there. Actually, the Mississippi River starts all the way in northern Minnesota up here and goes all the way down until it gets to the south. So usually if you're like me, when you think of the Mississippi River, you would think of the south, but actually, yeah, it starts all the way up in Minnesota. Kind of interesting. Yeah, Potterville, like I mentioned, where I'm from originally, probably many of you have not heard of it. So here's Lansing, the capital of Michigan, right? Grand Rapids, where we're at. And so not too far, just an hour, hour and a half drive there. And this is one of the interactive elements that's kind of fun and you can make with R. So I made this slide set with R. We might get to these, this is called a leaflet map. We might get to these towards the end of the semester, how you can make these types of maps and embed them in, say, slideshows or other documents like this. So just a little bit more about me. Like I mentioned, I enjoy running or jogging, watching football, so college football and NFL football. Always fun to watch. Fantasy football, gotten into that recently. It's always fun. College basketball. NBA, professional basketball has been a bit more disappointing as of recently for the Detroit Pistons, but I suppose I got to adopt a new team being in Minneapolis, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're there. They were a little bit better, but still pretty disappointing at times. I like Marvel movies and shows. You know, all the Avengers stuff, Captain America, that was great. Loki, She-Hulk, newer shows like that are great too. Like them all, so it's very entertaining stuff. Star Wars, I like The Mandalorian, all the Star Wars movies. I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd too. So yeah, and then most importantly, I enjoy spending time with my fiance, Lauren, who's also a professor in the Department of Statistics here, and playing with my cat, Lay, like a Hawaiian lei. So here's a picture of Lay. Lauren and I adopted her when we were in Minneapolis for graduate school together at Minnesota. So I always like to give a little plug for adopting and not shopping. So many cats and dogs at the shelter, right, who need a home. So if you can ever adopt rather than buying from a breeder, that's awesome. Help give these many animals a home if you can. And here's a picture of Lauren and I enjoying a nice sunset at Grand Haven State Park. So Grand Haven State Park, and there's Lake Michigan behind us there. It's a beautiful place. It's not too far from here. So if you ever get the chance, if some of you are new to Michigan, the beach at Grand Haven State Park is wonderful. One of the nicest natural places to be in nature in Michigan, in my opinion. So it's a beautiful place if you ever get the chance. And that's right over here. Again, using this nice leaflet map to show we're over here. Grand Haven State Park is, just a 30 or, a half hour to an hour drive to get to Lake Michigan and the beach there. Very nice in the summer. In the winter, not as much, but, whatever's your cup of tea. So, yeah, so we looked at the syllabus. I showed where that was at on Blackboard. We can look at it a little bit here. I typically trust you to read through the syllabus and ask if you have any questions. Let's see. So office hours will be via Zoom, and I use what's called office hour time slots. So essentially, you can click this link, and then there's these office hour time slots that you can click and book a time slot for office hours. So I have these as being 15-minute time slots, but you can always book like 2 or 3 if you wanted, if you felt like you needed much more time than 15 minutes, and that's perfectly fine. So this is just a nice efficient way, because sometimes, or I've typically seen, office hours tend to be like very hot and popular at certain times of the semester, not other times. And so rather than 3 people showing up and then all waiting, if you have your time booked ahead of time, it saves time for you because you just show up at your time slot. I can help right away. You don't have to waste any time waiting. So I found that this works well. And if you ever have any questions, of course, feel free to ask as well. Also, again, as I mentioned, since this is an asynchronous section of the course, we will not be meeting in person or together at the same time. So the Blackboard course site and the course YouTube channel, which this video is posted on, is where you will go to get your content for this semester. Okay. I will send announcements, as I mentioned, Blackboard announcements frequently to let you know when videos are posted, upcoming due dates for assignments or quizzes. Okay, so I'm going to be communicating with you a lot via those announcements this semester. Since we're asynchronous, this Lakers together stuff is not too relevant. Let's see. Yes, okay. So talking about R and how we're going to be using R this semester. Okay, so there's a few options. One sort of ready to go out of the box option for using R this semester is to use what's called RStudio Workbench. So if you click on this link, it'll take you to this login page in which you'll use your Grand Valley login information to log into RStudio Workbench, which is a cloud-based version of RStudio. That has everything installed already. Once you log in, I found it nearly always gives you this error the first time you hit login, and then if you log in with the correct info again, it lets you in. So I don't know why it has an error the first time every time, but you'll probably see that as well. Okay. And then you'll have this R session that you'll see, okay, RStudio. Everything's sort of ready to go. We'll talk a little bit more about this in the next video, the interface of RStudio here. But that's one option for using R. Another, which I would recommend if you are a master's student, I would recommend you install R and RStudio on your own machine, your own computer or laptop. Okay. I think if, as a master's student, especially if you plan on using R after this class, it's best to get used to having it on your own machine, sort of getting used to how that workflow works. RStudio Workbench is fine. You know, I'm not requiring that you install R in RStudio yourself. But I think just long-term for your own sake, it might be best to install it if you're a master's student moving forward using R more in the future, or if you're just using R more in the future anyways. So here's some quick instructions about installing R in RStudio. The last of the three methods for using R this semester, and again, I'm leaving it open to you, is sort of, it's my least recommended, but it's a backup option. If for some reason RStudio Workbench crashes or is unavailable for whatever reason, I don't anticipate that happening, but just sort of I was trying to have the backup option, is that there's this GBSU Stratus, which is a way to remotely connect to an on-campus machine at Grand Valley that already has RStudio installed. Okay, so you'll log in here. Instead of Office, you would put student because you're a student. I also linked to directions here. But you sign in here, and let's see. Okay. And then you'll click STA, it'll download this file, and then you'll run this file to connect to this remote desktop, which will have RStudio available on it. That's another option, but again, the least, I would recommend doing one or two, using one or two as your options for accessing R this semester. This is just a backup option. Okay. All right. Here I talk about the textbooks for the course. Again, they're freely available, so please don't buy them if you don't have to. I mean, you're welcome to, but you don't feel that you need to buy these physical copies of these. Talking about learning objectives, all sorts of stuff. We're going to learn how to do R. So importing data, getting it into R, ready to use, create data visualizations, ways to explore our data in that way. Writing R programs and functions to do simulations and randomization-based experiments. Okay, so we'll learn a little bit about what's called the bootstrap in that section of the class, which you may have heard of before. And just, yeah, very generally looking at how we can write clear and efficient R programs and well documenting our code using R Markdown, what's called R Markdown, and comments throughout our scripts. So in terms of assessment for this course, we will have homework assignments. So roughly 5 to 7 of those throughout the semester. We'll have Blackboard quizzes, which are auto-graded periodically. And then we will have a final project. Okay. So there is no exams, there's no like written exam or take-home exam in this class. Instead, we have this final project and homeworks and quizzes, along with attendance and participation. So we will have periodic activities as well that are credit, no credit, that need to be submitted via Blackboard too. But no exams. Okay, we're going to have a final project in which you create a data analysis portfolio. So it'll essentially be a collection of results showcasing all of your skills that you've learned this semester. Okay. So for homework, note that homework can still be submitted late via Blackboard. Okay. 48 hours within the deadline for half credit. And if you submit it via Blackboard, please email me as well. quizzes, unfortunately, cannot be submitted late because the answers, you get to see the answers, and so the answers are available after the deadline has passed. Okay, so note that homework can be turned in late, not quizzes, unfortunately. But to give you some breathing room, okay, like if you accidentally miss a quiz or miss a homework, the lowest homework score will be dropped at the end of the semester, and the lowest quiz score will also be dropped at the end of the semester. Okay. Let's see, there's some grading as well. I have a small section on the tutoring available at Grand Valley. This will likely be very limited for this course because it's a 400, 500 level class. When you get into these upper advanced courses, I don't think you'll be able to find a tutor, unfortunately. I still put this information here, but I think your best avenue for seeking help is to come to my office hours or email me. All right, and then other typical syllabi, syllabus administrative stuff. So yeah, so that's the syllabus roughly for this semester. Okay, so talking a little bit about why you're here taking this class, other than the obvious, it's required for my program, okay? So why are you here? So except for it being required, maybe you want to gain some experience coding or programming in R. And you want to learn how to create effective and meaningful data visualization. So why am I here? About 6 years of experience using R, learning statistics for much longer than that. I served as a graduate teaching assistant in grad school at Minnesota for this same course, essentially an R stat computing class. I also took the course before I did that at Minnesota. And then I also taught as what's called an adjunct instructor, essentially a contract semester by semester at a nearby university in Minneapolis while finishing up my grad degree, finishing up my PhD. I taught an R programming course there as well. Okay. So fortunately, you're the first iteration of my teaching this at Grand Valley, but not the first time I've taught an R programming class. So fortunately for your sake. Yeah, so what are we going to learn this semester? I briefly mentioned it before, I touched on this. We're going to learn about the RStudio IDE, Integrated Development Environment, a fancy way of saying graphical user interface, a GUI, a way in which we use R, the programming language. That's what RStudio is. It's a tool to use R. We're going to be learning about what's called R objects and syntax, the way in which we write R code, how we can read data into R, import it into R, how we can export it, how we can create collections of R code, bundles of R code called functions. For data visualization this semester, we're going to be using the Ggplot2 package, which in R package is a collection of R code that other people wrote that we can use. So we're going to be learning about the Ggplot2 package, which stands for, the GG stands for Grammar of Graphics. And it's 2 because it's the second version of the package. Okay, I think there was a Ggplot1 many years ago. We'll learn about aesthetics with those, so different colors and shapes we can use, themes and facets, so how we can pretty up our plots and make them more effective. In addition to Ggplot2, we're going to be learning about a lot of other packages as well. So the dplyr package, which is helpful for data manipulation and data wrangling. Excuse me. The readr package, which is helpful for importing and exporting data in R. The forcats package, which is helpful for working with factors in R, which are factors are analogous to categorical variables, okay, or nominal variables. The Tibble package, which is a package for working with data sets as well, manipulating those. The stringr package, which is useful, has a collection of tools for working with string data, so text data like words, like if you had a bunch of data on all the comments on a TikTok video, right? And you wanted to analyze those comments to see like, are they generally positive or negative, or you wanted to clean them up, remove swear words from them for some reason beforehand. This stringr package has a lot of very useful functions for working with text or string data. Okay. tidyr, which is a useful package for working with output from linear models, predictive models, and manipulating those into R objects that are a bit easier to work with and print the results from. The per package, I don't know if we'll get to this one, but we might look at this one briefly. Allows for functional programming in R. Essentially, when you need to do a task repeatedly with a slight change in each time over and over again in R, this has some efficient ways to do that. And lastly, the lubridate package, which allows us to work with date time variables much more easily in R. So simplifying, like subtracting dates, plotting them, lots of things with dates in data sets. Okay. So these are all collectively, these packages make up what we call the tidyverse in R. Okay. And the tidyverse is a single package that contains all the code from each of these individual packages. We'll learn more about that as we get into this semester. So like I mentioned, we'll learn about tidying data using dplyr and tidyr, wrangling and transforming data, so getting it in a form that's ready for analysis, ready for visualization, merging, so bringing data sets together, combining them into a unified single table, pivoting data, which is a pain, but the tidyverse functions have simplified this quite a bit. So sometimes your data might be in a wide format, but you want it to be in a longer format. Maybe like you had a column for each day of the month and you have measurements. So you have like 30 columns and a bunch of measurements across those, but maybe instead you wanted each day of the month to be the rows and the observations to be flipped into the columns. That process of going either direction is called pivoting. We'll talk about that later in the semester. We'll also talk about how to make graphics interactive. So you saw like the leaflet earlier, that map I was working with that I could drag and zoom in and out of. That's an example of an interactive graphic. So there's many other types of interactive graphics we can use in R. So we'll look at some of those. Okay. Here I linked to some, they call them galleries, essentially some really fantastic and interesting things people have created using R. And RStudio, the company who owns R, is showing them off. So like here's this collection of graphs, data visualizations that people have made in R. And so if you know which one you want, you can click on it and it'll give you the R code to produce that type of plot. Okay. I'm just talking about these very briefly. I'll let you explore these on your own if you're interested. R Markdown is a tool made available via RStudio. You can make interactive documents with it, HTML, PDF, Microsoft Word documents, all sorts of things. So you can click on these here and see what people have made. Yeah, so we'll just look at like this example here. So this is called like a dashboard, which we'll get to at the very end of the semester. These are really cool because you can, it's interactive. You can like look at this line chart to display this time series data. You can create a map that then you can hover over to get more information about that state. Okay. This is a tree map, I believe, where you can visualize, yeah, different types of data, use a bar plot here. So these are some of the most like advanced and cool things people make, all built on R. This is all built on R code. Okay. It's cool to look at these. Don't feel discouraged if it's like, I will never, you know, sometimes it like, I guess if you're like me, it's really cool to see this stuff. And it can also be maybe a little bit discouraging because it's like, gosh, these people are so much more advanced in R than me. But, you know, keep in mind that like to make some of these, it took many months or possibly, you know, more than a year of work for some of these people to make these individual things. Okay, so yes, they're very nice, but don't be discouraged. You know, see it as more of like a cool thing to look at for all the possibilities of the things you can do with R. Okay. Yeah, that's our Markdown galleries. Our Shiny is another tool within R in which you can make interactive documents. So here's some more, a showcase showing what people have made. Okay. Again, you can look into those more if you're interested, but just to showcase some of like what people are doing with R. Okay, so what we won't be learning this semester. Some of you may recognize this robot here, Sophia, right? That's her name. The artificially intelligent robot. Won't be doing anything like that this semester, unfortunately. So no deep learning, no machine learning even, and no artificial intelligence. We're not going to be doing that this semester. But I'm here to tell you those buzzwords, as we call them, a little bit overrated. Okay, the stuff we're doing in this course, some of the most important things in statistics here, with effective data visualizations, those dashboards that are interactive, learning how to tidy up and clean up data and make sense of it. Those are the driving forces for like what's leading statistics forward here. Okay, so my biased opinion, we're doing the coolest stuff here right in this class. All right, we talked about grading, yeah, for the semester already in the syllabus. Homework, we won't get to the first homework for another week or two. That will be submitted via R Markdown, which we will slowly walk through together. So I know that's a new novel thing that might mean nonsense to you right now. So we'll walk into that together, taking that one step at a time. And then homeworks, yeah, 5 to 7 of those throughout the semester. I mentioned the final project, which we'll discuss later in the semester as well. There'll be more details about that. Okay. And yeah, next time we will look at an introduction to R. So we'll open up R and look at that together. But in the meantime, if you can complete this Google survey just to give me an idea of your background. So again, you need to sign into your Grand Valley Gmail account to use that. Click on that if you can fill that out and submit that. within the next few days, that would be great. And then complete the weekly readings, which I linked to here for this week. Okay, so start on those and complete the Google survey. That's all we need to work on. Okay, so if you have any questions, please reach out via email. And I'm looking forward to this semester together. Thanks.